Here now is Faith to Live By with Pastor Barber.
Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 1, Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. And verse 6, Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Welcome to Faith to Live By. I'm Jim Barber. Rick Bowring begins our singing as he sings, Ho, everyone who is thirsty in spirit.
Oh, everyone that is thirsty in spirit, oh, everyone that is weary and sad, come to the fountain, there's fullness in Jesus. All that you're longing for, come and be glad. Child of the world, are you tired of your bondage? Weary of earth joys so false, so untrue, thirsting for God and his fullness of blessing. Listen to the promise, a message for you. I will pour water on him that is thirsty. I will pour floods upon the dry ground. Open your heart for the gift I am bringing. While ye are seeking me, I will be found. Child of the kingdom, be filled with the Spirit. Nothing but fullness thy longing can meet. 'Tis the endowment for life and for service. Thine is the promise, so certain, so sweet. I will pour water on him that is thirsty. I will pour floods upon the dry ground. Open your heart for the gift I am bringing. While ye are seeking me, I will be found.
The Bible has the answer. We search the Scriptures for answers to the questions which are before us. Question number 1. Who wrote the New Testament book of Hebrews? The New Testament book of Hebrews does stand in a unique position within the 27 books of the New Testament, for it is the only one that does not have a very clear author, or by inference, a clear author that is given to us from the earliest days of church history. We have other books of the New Testament, such as the Gospel of John, which is written anonymously, but that right from the very earliest days, the finger was pointed to John as the author, and other books as well. Then there are ones that are perfectly clear that it was written by Paul or Peter or James because they are so named. However, Hebrews, we struggle, and this has been something that has gone on for a long time. In no particular order, let me give you those names which have been suggested to us. There is, of course, Paul. The translators of the King James Version, they were very strong and put in the title that Paul was the author. Well, the text does not actually say that, as it does for the other letters of Paul. There is Apollos. a man who was very eloquent. There is Luke, who we know well from the New Testament, Barnabas, Clement of Rome, Timothy, Epaphras, Silas, or Philip. And so here we have questions about who was the author, and we cannot come to a definite conclusion. Personally, I favor Apollos. He is a man who, in the book of Acts, is described as a man who had a tremendous facility with the language of the day, which would have been Greek. And the Greek, for those who study New Testament Greek, they find that the Greek of the book of Hebrews is strangely some of the most linguistically complicated, and you need to be especially getting your feet under you in other books, first of all, before you tackle Hebrews. Perhaps Apollos, but does it matter? For in 2 Timothy chapter 3:16, we have it that all Scripture is God-breathed. That is, that it is inspired by God. And so, really, God is the author, though He worked through human agency to bring it to us. God is the one who truly wrote the book of Hebrews. Question number 2. Is the coronavirus mentioned in the Bible? Or another way of putting it, is this a judgment of God or a key sign of the end? We were waiting for this question to be asked. I think that we need to put what is taking place and has taken place into a proper perspective. Yes, this is a pandemic, and our world has absolutely turned itself inside out to try to get a handle on this in a human sphere. And let me say that it has been truly in a human sphere. I have heard precious little calling upon God for Him to be intervening in our world, and what a sad comment that is. However, this is not by any means the first epidemic, pandemic, plague that has come upon our world. In the mid-14th century, there was the Black Death, or pestilence, or plague. About 60% of Europe died as a result of that. Then, in Luther's time, Martin Luther's time, it came knocking on the door of Wittenberg. Then, just over 100 years ago, there was, of 1918, the flu pandemic, and it infected approximately a third of the world's population of that day, and they figure that about 50 million people died from that. And so, what is taking place here? Is it a judgment of God? In the book of Luke, Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verse 11, we are told there will be great earthquakes, and in various places plagues and famines, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. This is Jesus looking forward or anticipating the end of the world and coming judgment. But Jesus also, in John chapter 16 and verse 33, said to His disciples, just as He was about to go to Calvary, "These things I have spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world." Many times people have asked me privately, is this God's judgment? I say to them, plainly, I do not know. God has not conferred with me about it. But what I do say, and this I do know, is God is constantly seeking to have our attention. But we are distracted. We are looking this way and that. We are concerned about many things. God would have us to fix our eyes upon Him. And so I believe that God has been and will continue to work through those things which cause us such turmoil, that we might set our eyes upon Him, and that we would get our eyes off of the temporal, that is, off of the temporary, and onto the eternal for our own good. Thank you for these questions. I trust the answers have been helpful. If you have a question, send it to us. Our mailing address is Faith to Live By, Box 426, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C2H6. Terry and Tim Sturby come to sing Do You Know My Jesus? And that is followed by Heidi Taves singing Fill My Cup, Lord.
Have you a heart that's weary, tending a load of care? Are you a soul that's seeking rest from the burden you bear? Do you know my Jesus? Do you know my friend? Have you heard he loves you and that he will abide till the end? Where is your heart, O pilgrim? What does your light reveal? Who hears your call for comfort when not but sorrows you feel? Who knows your disappointments? Who hears each time you cry? Who understands your heartaches? Who dries the tears from your eyes? Do you know my Jesus? Do you know my friend? Have you heard
You have a key share in Faith to Live By, and we are delighted to thank you for your kindness to us, praying for us, and supporting us with your financial gifts. We prepare Faith to Live By resources that we might express that thanks further. We have talked to you about books, and we've been talking to you about this CD entitled To God Be the Glory. It's 13 songs which all of our musicians prepared in late January of this year, and we have been offering it. Many hundreds have gone out, and we have been thrilled with the blessing it has been. The theme is praise to our God. Indeed, to God be the glory. We are happy to send this free and postage paid simply upon your request. And so when you write this week, be sure to ask for a copy of the CD, To God Be the Glory. Our mailing address is Faith to Live By, Box 426, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C 2H6, or our toll-free phone number, 1-833-4-FTLB. That's 1-833-367-3852. If you get a busy signal, if you receive the voice message system, do leave a message and we will get back to you. Let me also add a word that sometimes we are asked for materials that we get mixed up on. And we appreciate when you point out to us that we've missed the ball, that we've perhaps dropped the ball, or that we've sent you the wrong thing, or that we haven't sent you anything at all. Perhaps we've missed that in your note. Please help us to be a blessing to you in every way that we possibly can. Thank you for being patient with us when we in fact mess up. We now have Rick and Matt Bowring, father and son team, coming to sing I Surrender All, I Need Thee Every Hour. Have you ever experienced how tenacious people can be utterly annoying? When other people say, "Let it go, give up, stop it," they simply will not do that. I tell you that I stand before you because of a man who was tenacious, a man who I never met. Back in the early 1920s, he was a doctor. My mother, now 98 years of age, was coming to birth, and it was a small country home in Elora, or just outside of Elora in southern Ontario. And there were actually 2 doctors attending this first birth for this couple, the Hayneses. And there was this child born, a girl, but she would not breathe. They could not get her to breathe. They tried all kinds of different things, my mother told me some years ago. They tried dipping her in hot water and then cold water, seeking to shock her into taking that first breath. After some while, the younger doctor who was attending said, "Well, too bad, so sad, but that's it. We may as well just face up to the reality of what is what." The older doctor, he continued on, and he got my mother to start breathing, and she has been breathing now the air of earth for over 98, soon to be 99 years. There was a tenaciousness in that man almost 100 years ago, and as a result, my mother lived, and as a result, I live, and so do my 2 brothers and 2 sisters and our families. What a legacy. In 1 Kings chapter 18, we read of a tenacious prophet who had just bested the prophets of Baal, and who, because they had failed, were taken down and slain by the brook Kidron. Elijah had prayed just a simple prayer. Now there was more work to be done, and here's what we read. Now Elijah said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of the roar of a heavy shower." But Elijah needed to pray and ask God to do exactly that, what he had promised to do. Ahab, king of the land, he goes up at the command of Elijah to eat and drink, but Elijah, he goes to a place on top of Mount Carmel, and he crouches down, and it says he crouched down on the earth and put his face between his knees. He bowed so low in almost a fetal-like position. He said to his servant, "Go up now, look toward the sea." So he went up and looked and said, "There is nothing." And he said, "Go back 7 times. Think of that. 7 times Elijah continued to pray, and he would not take no for an answer. It came about at the 7th time that he said, the servant, "Behold, a cloud. But it's as small as a man's hand. It's coming up from the sea." That was all that Elijah needed. And he says, "Go up, say to Ahab, prepare your chariot and go down, so that the heavy shower does not stop you." In a little while, the sky grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy shower. And Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. Then the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and outran Ahab to Jezreel. Here was a man who prayed, and he prayed down blessing. We saw that Elijah did not pray with big fancy words, nor with shouts and screams when he bested the prophets of Baal. A simple prayer. And here once again, he grabs a hold of the throne of God and says, "Go, God, I am just going to pray in concert and in agreement and in harmony with what I know that you are wanting to do, and I am going to keep on praying for what is upon my heart. I know that I am speaking to many people who have been praying for family members. You've been praying for something that has been afflicting you, praying, and I bid you to continue to pray and to knock and to pound on the door of heaven, for your God is mighty, and He is the God who is a prayer-answering God. Oh, be tenacious in prayer and call upon Him for His blessing, abundant, rich, and free today.
Though millions have come, there's still room for one. Yes, there's room at the cross for you.
Thank you for joining Pastor Barber today. Please watch for Faith to Live By again next Sunday at this same time on this same station. Until then, Faith to Live By prays that the peace of God will fill your heart and that the joy of the Lord will be your strength. Pastor Barber would love to hear from you. The mailing address is Faith to Live By, Box 426, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C 2H6.